All right, today we are diving back into Pandora for the third chapter of James Cameron's massive saga, Avatar: Fire and Ash. And believe me, this one takes everything we thought we knew about the Na'vi and just flips it on its head. So yeah, let's just get straight into it.
So the movie kicks off a full year after the heartbreaking events of The Way of Water, and that emotional weight, that fallout, is the very first thing you feel. But this time, the biggest threat to the Na'vi isn't just coming from the Sky People. No, it's rising from the very heart of Pandora itself.
And that really is the emotional core of the whole story, the loss of Natam. It's not just some backstory detail. The grief is almost like its own character in the film, actively shaping every decision and every conflict for the Sully family.
And you can see how this grief is just creating these deep cracks in the family. Jake, for his part, is just exhausted by the constant war. Neytiri's pain has soured into this really dangerous resentment of all humans, which of course pushes Spider further away than ever. And Kiri? Well, she's pulling away too, but she's going deeper into her spiritual connection with Eywa, and that bond is about to become more important than anyone can imagine.
So while the Sullys are fighting their own internal battles, a totally new threat emerges from the shadows of Pandora. Now, these are Na'vi, but they're a clan unlike any we have ever seen before, the Mangquan, better known as the Ash People.
So who are these guys? Well, they come from the super harsh volcanic regions of Pandora, and their whole worldview is completely different. They look at fire not as something destructive, but as a purifying, powerful force. And here's the absolute biggest shocker. They have totally rejected Eywa, the one spiritual being that connects all the other Na'vi clans.
This whole philosophy is personified by their intense leader, Varang. In their minds, Eywa has gone silent, has abandoned them. So their new creed is all about brutal self-reliance, about carving out their own destiny using fire and force. And, as you can guess, that radical idea puts them on a direct collision course with literally every other clan.
What this sets up is basically a Na'vi civil war, a war of belief systems. You have the traditional Na'vi, who are all about balance with nature through Eywa, and then you have the Ash People, who want to master Pandora through chaos and fire. It's this massive cultural split, and it's tearing their world apart.
And they do not waste a single second making their presence felt. Their first big move is this absolutely brutal ambush on some traders, and it just throws our heroes into total chaos. The Sully family gets separated, Neytiri is badly wounded, and suddenly the threat of this new enemy becomes terrifyingly real.
Just when you think things can't possibly get any more complicated, a familiar face sees a golden opportunity in all this chaos. Colonel Quaritch is back, still in his recombinant body, but this time, his whole strategy is different.
See, instead of his usual head-on assault, Quaritch plays puppet master. He goes to the RDA and convinces them that the smartest way to win is to arm one Na'vi faction to fight the other. So he gives Varenga and the Ash People human weapons, and just like that, a rebellion turns into a full-blown, human-funded civil war.
And this right here, this is the absolute game changer. For the very first time, we're seeing Na'vi armed by humans to wage war on their own people. The lines between who's a friend and who's an enemy have never been so blurry, and it leads to a terrifying new chapter in the conflict.
This unholy alliance, it forces the hand of every other clan on Pandora. Suddenly, they're facing an enemy from within and an enemy from without, and they have no choice but to unite for one massive final stand. From the oceans to the forests, all the clans put their differences aside. They know that the Ash People and their human backers are a threat to the very soul of Pandora. It's this incredible moment, this huge gathering of forces, that sets the stage for the film's insane climax.
But right in the middle of the battle, things get intensely personal. Quaritch and Varang actually manage to capture Neytiri. They plan to use her as a bargaining chip to break Jake's spirit and demoralize the entire Na'vi army.
And that is the turning point. Kiri is pushed to her absolute limit, and she finally fully embraces her connection to Eywa. She doesn't just ask for help, she literally channels the raw, untamed power of Pandora itself, calling on massive creatures and turning the planet into a weapon against its enemies.
And amidst all this planetary wrath and chaos, it all boils down to this: Jake versus Quaritch. One final, brutal fight to settle the score once and for all, with Neytiri's life and the fate of Pandora hanging in the balance.
But the end of the battle isn't some simple victory. Oh no, the resolution is messy, complicated, full of loss, and a really unsettling sense of ambiguity that's clearly meant to set up the next movie.
In a move that's either pure mercy or some kind of 4D chess, Jake ends up saving not only Spider, but also a defeated Quaritch. Quaritch then just disappears. We have no idea where he is. Varang and what's left of her forces retreat, but they swear they'll be back. And finally, after everything he's been through, Spider is fully and truly accepted by the Na'vi, finally finding a place to call home.
So when you zoom out, the film is really juggling some pretty heavy themes. It's a really deep look at how grief can totally shape who you are, the dangers of cultural division, and what happens to your faith when it's put to the ultimate test by violence and betrayal.
Critically, though, the film's reception was a little more mixed. It actually landed the lowest Rotten Tomatoes score of the franchise so far. Pretty much everyone agreed the visuals were, mind-blowing, but some critics felt the story wasn't quite as strong as the first two films.
But hey, critics' scores don't always tell the whole story, right? Commercially, Fire and Ash was an absolute monster, soaring past the billion-dollar mark worldwide. It just goes to show you that audiences are still completely hooked on the world of Pandora.
Which brings us to the big final question. Yeah, the battle was won, but the war for Pandora's soul feels like it's far from over. So what do you think? Was this a real victory, or was it just a temporary truce before an even bigger war kicks off? I guess that's a question the next film is going to have to answer.